Did you knock Mommy over?
No, I'm sorry. No. No, I knocked to one. Beep, 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 beep. Big, big, big. Oh, no, no. 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to Jennifer Knatters. I am Jennifer and this is my knitting video podcast. I apologize for the lighting. It is 9:30 at night. It is dark outside. It's been a while since it's been dark this early, but it is now dark outside. I don't know if you can hear. It has just started raining. I love the sound of the rain on the roof, but hopefully it won't be too distracting. And I keep saying I'm going to find a floor lamp to kind of change the lighting. I have not found the floor lamp. I know I have one. My husband took it away because he didn't like it, which sounds a lot worse than it is. We used to sit on the sofa together before we had too many children, and I'd have my lamp for knitting and it would shine in his eyes. So he bought me a different lamp, which has since broken, and I don't know where the original lamp is that I could put out here. So he didn't take my lamp away, he replaced it. I've just started and I'm already digressing. Hi, it has been 2 weeks since I've done this, so I'm a little out of practice. Just about every night I said, okay, tonight's the night, I'm gonna go do this. And then I got my youngest child to sleep and I was kind of just like, I just want to knit. I don't want to have to work on it, like figure anything out. I just want to knit. So yeah, it took me till tonight. Thank you for coming back. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I promise I will try to find my place in this. If I haven't mentioned yet, which I don't believe I have, I am coming from Inverness in northern Scotland. I'm originally from the Bay Area in California. And I'm sorry. Let's have some tea. Let's have some tea. And let's have some knitting content. The knitting I have to work on, the needle is sticking out of the bag, and it is the project that I stabbed myself with a few weeks back. So I want to be extra careful with that. But I've only barely worked on that. So let's start with some finished objects. I have some new things I haven't shown you before, because pretty much everything I have to talk about this week is brand new. I did not work on any of my works in progress, or at least I barely worked on any of my works in progress in the last 2 weeks, because shiny new things came along. And honestly, the list of things I want to cast on, like I want to cast on a new pair of vanilla socks, or a different pair of fancy socks, or cowls, and apparently autumn has started. Today is the 30th of August, but the weather has been cool here, except last weekend when suddenly it was really hot again. But it is cool to get down again for this weekend. So the weather's been cool. As you can see, I've got my Fair Isle vest, and I've got my brushwork custom fit cardigan. It's cool, except it's not that cool. It's a little bit cool, and then the sun comes out and suddenly it's really hot and muggy. But I've been wanting to cast on all the things, and I feel I have shown great restraint, honestly. The first thing I have to show you, I've got 2 test knits for Hunter Hammersen, and she does say feel free to share them far and wide. Which one did I do? So these, she hasn't released the pattern name yet, but these are little slippers with a little pole loop, and the construction is you knit a strip double the length that it's going to be, and then pick up stitches around the strip and under it and knit your heel cap, and then you go down and you work some gusset decreases on the side, cross over the front when you have the number of stitches you want. So just so you can see, this is just a little twisted rib And the most difficult part, honestly, was crossing right there. There is a knit 4 together, a twisted knit 4 together. Just one on each sock. And then you go down, and then you basically knit until you're pretty much at the end, because the toe decreases wind up happening really fast. So yeah. And these were made with the leftover wool I had from my DK socks. This is Ripple Crafts Doubly Reliable Sock Yarn, which I believe it's listed as a DK, but I think it's more of a sport weight, just from having used other sport weight sock yarns. That's my personal feeling. I got 7 stitches to the inch. I measured my old socks, which have both been blocked and worn, so I figure it's a very accurate gauge swatch. And I had 7 stitches to the inch, whereas this pattern's really written for 4, 5, or 6 stitches for the inch. And if you've ever knit any of Hunter's patterns, you know they all come in multiple gauges. So you really need to swatch and see what you're getting to see which set of instructions, which numbers you're following, to know what size garment, in this case socks, you will end up with. So it's knitting for 4, 5, or 6, and I had 7, and I wound up knitting the medium size, and these are just a tiny bit small on me, so they are going in the gift box. But they're really cute. So I knit the left one as my test knit, and for once I actually feel like I pulled my weight. I am not a good person for noticing typos or small characters out of place in charts. I'm just not. My brain fills in what it thinks I should see, and then that's what I knit. But I did find some things in the pattern that just needed to be fixed. I mean, there's no real point telling you what they are. The thread is public if you really want to know, but there were just some things in the pattern, like there were no instructions to graft the toe together. If you've knit socks before, you know that's where you're at. But yeah, so I did find a few things, and I felt really good about actually having helped, because normally I'm like, I'll knit it. It was fine. And then other people are like, here's a list of all the typos, all the dangling clauses, all of the this, that, the other things. And I'm like, no, that's really not who I am. But I've test knit several of Hunter's things by now, so I think she knows that that is not a thing I can offer. And then I knit the other one. I actually knit this one pretty much twice, because I knew it wasn't, I remember what it was. I started the decreases to work down to where you cross, and then when I tried it on, it was really far down my foot, whereas I wanted this a bit snugger towards my ankle, my leg coming up from my ankle. But I went ahead and finished knitting it because it is a test knit, and having a finished object is more important than having an item that I'm going to love forever and ever and ever. I mean, I get a copy of the pattern, and that's the bargain. So I finished it, and then I just didn't graft the toes together. Haha, it didn't say to in the pattern. And then I ripped it back to like there, and then reknit it so that it crossed over a little sooner. And then I knit the second pair, so these ones just swoop over in the other direction. I could have put these on sock blockers, but you really can't see what's going on anyway. But this one swoops over from this side, and this one swoops over from that side. So yeah, I did that, And then I thought, I'm going to darn the pair of socks I accidentally went off on a tangent about last week, where I was going to complain about the yarn West Yorkshire Spinners, which is a yarn I have a ton of in my stash. I've knit a bunch of socks, and I had a pair of socks where one of them already had a hole, and they're in my year. I'm almost to a year now of recording this podcast. They're a project I worked on in this year, and they already had a hole in them on very little wear. And then it was the summer, I wasn't wearing them at all, but they'd already had a hole in them just from over the winter. And I was really upset about it. And then I actually sat down to look at it right before I did that podcast, and I realized they didn't really have, I mean, it looked more like a thread. It must have caught on something and broken, because it wasn't wear anywhere else. So I pulled out the socks and the rest of the yarn in that color, and I decided I was going to fix it. Spoiler alert, I wound up cutting it off and just reknitting it, because it was a contrast heel. But I tried darning it, and then I pulled it all out and I tried darning it again, and it's still really lumpy and it's not catching everything. And I knew it was going to bug me under my foot to have this, basically this knotted mass. So I just cut it off, and this was a short row heel rather than afterthought one, so it was knit around, like the stitches just go in one direction rather than knitting down to a point, which made it slightly trickier because I couldn't just unravel back to both sides having the stitches loose. But I just cut it off, picked up my stitches, and knit an afterthought heel. So hey, not only do I have those socks back in my rotation, I am wearing them right now because they go really well with my teal shirt. So that was the first two things I did. And then Ms. Hammersen put up another test call for little elf dolls, little leaf pods. So I knit, there are 3 different leaf capes and 2 different leaf pods. I ordered a whole bunch of these little wooden dolls to put them in. I only knit the 2 because I don't have a lot of green or autumnal colors, and her sample ones are all autumnal. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't do them as spring, but her ones are all autumnal, and I think they'd be really cute autumn decorations, but I don't really have a lot of autumnal colors in my stash. And this green is again Ripples Crafts. This is her Merino DK, and the color is Slice of Lime. And the little leaf is some much deeper stash, which is, I think, Arincia? Is that how you... and I have no idea what the colorway was. This was from the second pair of knots, the second and third pair of socks I knit for my husband. It took me about a month to knit him a pair of socks. This was back when I was a much slower knitter. And then 2 weeks later, he washed one of them, and it got very small. In fact, actually, I think he washed both of them. They were both very small. So I went back to the shop, I bought another skein of the yarn, and I knit him another pair of socks. And if that's not love, I honestly, I don't know how else I could demonstrate that. But these little leaves, this one has kind of a leaf pointy back. And there's 2 other different shape leaf ones. Chris says, why don't you paint on a little face? I said, because then I'd have to line up the little face with the cloak. And the tie I have on it is just some of this yarn, so it's not a great match, but it works for now. And then I remembered that I had an advent calendar from 2017. Now I'm thinking, yes, 2017 advent calendar from Lucy Locket Land. And I had started to knit, I think it was a Kiss Shawl by Louise Tilbrook. Should have looked that up, but I didn't. Anyway, I started to knit a simple garter triangle shawl, but I realized I didn't like all of the colors in it. Like it was a lot of colors I did like, and then suddenly there'd be a brown, and then there'd be a bunch of colors I did like, and suddenly, and anyway, I thought, I don't really like this, so I set it aside. And then a year later I pulled it out and I thought, okay, I'm gonna see if I can make this look more like what I want it to. And again, I tried some different things and I didn't like it, so I set it aside. Excuse me. I haven't done this much talking in a while. So I remembered that I had some autumn colors in this advent calendar. You get different colors. Not all of them are going to be 100% your favorite color. So I pulled out where I'd stashed the advent calendar and set aside some of the autumnal colors and realized the other ones are all really, really nice actually. And I decided to start a Cozy Memories blanket. So I did. Where am I? So this was my first square, which was day 1. And from there, it is not in any particular order. But I have done 16 squares, and I only stopped because when I record the podcast, I wanted to have a square rather than have like 2 hanging off. The shape looks a little weird right now because I did wash it and then I just hung it over a drying rack on the radiator. So I let it hang like this for a little bit and then I switched it to hang like this for a little bit. So the center 4 squares are square and the outside ones are pretty much all rectangular because they didn't get the weight to tug them into a properly square shape. So almost all of these colors are from that first advent calendar. The only 2 that are not, this is some Malabrigo sock. Don't use Malabrigo sock to knit socks. It's 100% merino. It is really soft. You will walk through them in 5 minutes. Don't do it. Maybe bed socks that are never going to touch the ground. But I bought it to make socks. And then I discovered that it would make terrible sock yarn, even though sock is right there in the name. I bought it and then I read up about it. This was in my very early sock knitting journey. So I wound up knitting a cowl and mitts from a Carol Feller pattern, and they're lovely. And they're very soft, and this is definitely something you should have near your face, not on your feet. Anyway, I think the color is something like grape. I don't really remember. And then this yellowy orange one is an abstract cat. Again, I bought it thinking socks and then found out that I probably bought them on the same trip to This Is Knit in Glasgow. No, not This Is Knit. This Is Knit is in London. Yarn Cake. That's what it is. Yarn Cake in Glasgow. And then read more about socks and realized that these were not great yarns. This is a full cake. This was just a bit of scrap. This is a full cake where I just thought I will knit my 5-gram square. I did knit a couple of the first ones and weigh it, and they're pretty much all coming in at exactly 5 grams or close enough as to make no difference. So 5-gram balls are perfect for this. I think this is lemons and oranges is the color. And all the other ones are from the scrap yarn blanket, and some of them are different, like this bright pink. There's no other color like the bright pink. And this purple with all the different colors in it. This is really pretty. And some of them are more clearly kind of the same colorway, dyed to different intensities or on different bases. So like this pinky purple one is on a Tweety base with tweeds, not like a Tweety bird. And then this pinky purple is a slightly fluffier yarn. And this is more of a high twist for a sock yarn. So the different bases take the colors in different ways, and things like that. This greeny one, there's nothing else quite like the greeny one. But anyway, a lot of the colors are fairly similar. So there's another one of the pinky purple ones that's just really light. So I've been trying to keep them not next to each other. Doot, doot, doot. But yeah, the things in my stash are going to add in a whole lot of super saturates. More like that purple one. But I have decided I am now in the business of trading minis. So if you will be at Perth and you have 5-gram minis you are looking to get rid of, I will take them. If I have any 5-gram minis, I know I've got enough of the Malabrigo sock because I've still got a lot of that left over. All of these ones, because they were 5-gram balls, I've pretty much used them up entirely. Ooh, I've been weaving in my ends as I go. This is the wrong side. And as you can see, I've only got a couple on the edges. And there's one down at the end that it's got a knot. I magic knotted it, but I'm not sure it's holding together well enough, so I haven't cut the thread there. But yeah, I can make up some little minis, certainly of at least this one, and I'll see what else in my stash I can make little minis. And if you need 5-gram minis, or if you have 5-gram, if you have little odds and ends of sock yarn, 4-ply sock yarn that you know you are never going to use, you can donate them to the cause. But I did that, and I've been looking online at various minis and mini sets and stuff, and I think that's kind of, when I go to Perth Yarn Festival, that's more what I will be concentrating on. So yeah, it's just like mini acquisition. I do want to try a pair of MCN Merino Cashmere nylon socks. I have never knit with MCN, and it sounds absolutely lovely. I'm just checking my little planner to see what I've got, but Christina got a hold of it. Sorry, Tulip, my 6-year-old. My yarn has been very good. That's what she wrote. And with the blanket, I did work out that 19 squared, so 19 squares by 19 squares, it's currently 4 by 4, would be 361 squares, which there's 365 days in a year, so that's pretty much exactly a year's worth of averaging 1 square a day. In a week, I've done 16, so I'm slightly ahead of the curve right now. Ooh, here comes Oliver. I'll make room for him on the sofa. Oliver is my cat, one of my cats. He is the one of our cats who is more my cat, although that was before I had children. Since I've had children, he has not enjoyed spending time with me when there are a lot of children around. No, he's thinking about going back out. Anyway, 19 squares times averaging 3.5 inches to a square also works out to be about the same. It works out to be about 5'6", and I am 5'6". So I'd have a blanket that is as big as I am square. So, yeah. But I could get to, 15 by 15 and decide I want it longer or whatever. But that's kind of where I'm thinking, take about a year, make a blanket that's about the same size as I am square. Normally I'm round, but this time I will be square. Next up, I've got knit-alongs. Apparently I've made knit-along a category. And the Boost Your Knitting, I did, before I started my scrap yarn blanket, I did pull out the August project, which is the Skystone arm warmers. I showed you that I'd knit one, and I just started the cuff on the second one 2 weeks ago for my last video. So I pulled it out to work on it, and the pattern wasn't there. I have since found the pattern, and I have worked on it. I've done, like that much. So I didn't even bring it in to show you because there's really nothing to see on that. But the next pattern, today is the 30th of August, so 31st is tomorrow when I will probably upload this. And Sunday, the next pattern comes out, and it is a Carol Feller pattern, and she's doing the technique is brioche, and it is the falling leaves scarf, and that it is in her yarn, the Nua, the sport weight Nua, the original Nua. Is everything we know about the project so far, though it's knit long ways rather than knit short rows back and forth. It is knit as a long, my hands don't fit, long, widthwise rather than lengthwise rather than widthwise. And the books are shipping now. The people who ordered at the beginning when they first announced it, there was an option to buy the kits and the book, all 4 quarters of yarn and the book in one fell swoop. And so the August kit and the winter kit and the book have shipped to the people who ordered that, and then one presumes the books for the rest of us. Come on. Hello. How's my beautiful boy? This is my Oliver. As you can see, his eye is still a little bit wonky. It is not as bad as it seems, although it is still not healed. Apparently that is a healing membrane that is growing over his eye. So if it looked a little weird, that's what it is. He's still receiving medicine, and he is still largely hiding from me all day. So I'm very happy he's come to see me, and he's now sat next to me and purring, which may or may not be louder than the rain. So yes, hopefully I will get my physical book next week, and I believe on Sunday they will be uploading the digital copies. I'm guessing, I don't actually know, but I would presume that they'll be uploading the digital copies of the books. So that will be the rest of the next 6 months. All of the patterns will be online. So yeah, so I was looking at it, and between the 4 skeins of the Nua, which is 2 of 2 different shades, and the 4 skeins, again 2 of 2 different shades of the Something to Knit With 4-ply, which is the Arnold Culliford's yarn. They've got the 4-ply and they've got a worsted, and Nua comes in a sport and a worsted. Between the 2 of those, it was just shy of the cost of the kit, which then also comes with a bunch of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, which is what this is knit in, and the current project, the Stone Sky arm warmers. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get it, but then I couldn't decide between the 2 kits because I liked, there's the designer choice yarn and then there's Jen's choice yarn, and I liked the Nua in the designer's choice, and I liked the Jamieson and Smith colors in Jen's choice, and the Something to Knit With colors, one was a blue and a yellow, and the other was a darker blue and a lighter blue. So either of those were fine. But I went with the designer's choice because I figured the Nua, if I'm going to need, I bought a sweater quantity of Nua in a 5th color. That's not either of the 4 in the 2 kits. And I figure if I need any, like to do just a contrast cast off or anything like that, then the designer colors would work better with the one I have for fitting into my wardrobe. So that's why I went with that one, although there's a note that they may run out of things and have to do a substitution, and I'm kind of just like, oh no, please contact me if you need to do a substitution. I have opinions. I'm sure they would. They're very proactive on being in touch with people. Yeah, so I ordered that just today. It hasn't come in yet, but that will be an acquisition for later. And then I also signed up for the Locateli knit along, and the second pattern in the Booster Knitting, the shawl, the beautiful shawl, was a Locateli pattern. And I was thinking, I haven't, like, she's a pretty big name designer, but I don't really know many of her designs. And then I realized I'd knit a cowl of hers as well, the Paris and Berlin, I think is what it's called. So I knit the triangular cowl. It's kind of a scarf cowl, my favorite style, a while back as well. And then I had a couple of patterns saved in my favorites that were by her. And I was like, oh, was that pattern her? And that was one I put in my favorites when I was looking at, when I thought I would knit myself a pregnancy cardigan, a pregnancy and breastfeeding cardigan when I was pregnant with Tulip, my 6-year-old. And yeah, that obviously never happened. Even if I'd started when I found out I was pregnant, I don't think I would have finished it in time to where I was the world's slowest knitter at the time, and I hadn't knit a jumper other than little baby ones at that point. But she designed the one that I liked the most. I didn't realize it was even still in my favorites. I purge like my queue and stuff like that, but I never purge my favorites because favorites are favorites, I guess. So yeah, I bought she had a discount going. Today's the last day to sign up, so by the time you see this tomorrow, by the time today you watch this, the sign-ups will already be closed, but you can obviously participate. You just won't be eligible for any prizes. But I bought the 3-color cashmere cowl, which someone else in the Boost Your Knitting threads had knit with the leftovers from the triangle cowl. Let me just see if I go back a little bit, if I can get the name of, it was still in June, it was May, wasn't it? Hohi Locateli, the Sterling shawl, that's the one. They knit it with their leftovers from the Sterling shawl, so I figure I can knit this cowl with the leftovers from mine, and then I've used up some scraps. And I did go ahead and order an advent calendar for 2019, a yarn advent calendar, and most of what I was finding, the ones that have already been announced, are already sold out, or they're over 100 pounds, or both, or they're over 100 pounds sold out and shipping from the US anyway, where there'd be the huge import, the VAT, including the cost of shipping, 20% on the cost of the item, plus the cost of the shipping, plus an 8-pound handling fee. So no, I will not be ordering over 100-pound things from the US ever. I think I will not do that ever. But I found one by My Mama Knits, and she's one of the vendors who will be at Perth, and she has a 24 days by 5 grams advent calendar, and the theme is Scottish myths and legends. And I looked around her shop. She's also still got last year's, 2 years ago, she's got a previous year's advent calendar where it's 24 skeins, but it's only the 20 grams that's left, so it is over 100 pounds. But you can see all the colors, so you know exactly what you're getting. So if you're looking for an advent calendar and you have money to spend on this and you want to know exactly what you're getting, you can get that one. But yeah, so those will be for my scrap yarn blanket. And that is the only advent calendar I am planning on buying for me. I think there was one year I had 3. I had this yarn advent calendar. I had a makeup advent calendar from Mark & Spencer, and then my husband had bought me a tea advent calendar. That was a little too much money to be spending on advent calendars, so just one. It was less than 40 pounds for an advent calendar. I have actual plans to actually use it, although the last 2 years I've had actual plans to actually use it and nothing has come of those yet. Although I suppose one of them I'm over halfway through using. It only took 2 years, right? What's that in a knitter stash? So that is pretty much it for knitting. I did say I had my socks from when I stabbed myself here, but it's a pattern and I don't think I have the bandwidth in my brain. We should start that, brain width. I don't have the brain width to knit and talk to you at the same time. I actually did some gardening, although mostly it has been raining. But we went to the local garden center that is locally owned, and I bought a bunch of autumn bedding. I got a bunch of pansies, and I even planted some of them, one tray. And the slugs have eaten the ones I put in a pot by my husband's office. He works in a detached office in the garden. And yeah, the slugs have already eaten my pansies. I'm like, where are they? They were pretty. So that was not a good place to put them, apparently. The slugs really like his office. He says he goes in the morning and he can see that they've crawled under the door or something and slid around his walls. And I'm just like, oh, good. Thanks for sharing. But yeah, there's a lot of slugs in that corner because he's in the corner closest to the woods. So I guess the slugs are happier there. And I also cut back some trees that I also took pictures of to search on the internet, and it turns out they're supposed to be shrubs, and they're only supposed to be like 2 meters at most. They're like 3-4 meters tall. If you don't know, we live in what used to be my father-in-law's house, and so he had been in declining health for a couple of years, and then the house stood empty for a couple of years while we sorted out probate, and decided. And originally we were going to fix it up and sell it, and then we fixed it up enough that we looked at it and thought, actually, this is a really good house. We would be very lucky to live here. And then in the 4 years since we've been here, I've had small children. The first summer I was unpacking. We just moved in 4 years ago this month. So there was unpacking, and then it was kind of late autumn, winter. And then by the following summer, I was pregnant and I was really poorly. And then the following year, I had a newborn, or at least an infant. And the following year, I had a hyperactive 1-year-old with no sense of self-preservation. And this year, I was actually able to get some stuff done. But a lot of the things, we have someone who comes and mows our lawn, and then we also ask them to trim bushes and stuff. But they were not cutting them down. They were just kind of like smoothing them off. So I'm like, no, let's cut these suckers back. Let's really bring everything down to like fence height or just below fence height so it grows up to fence height. And if things die, then they die. And if they survive, then they can stay there. Because everything needs to just be a little bit smaller, a little bit more self-contained, or a little bit more contained. So that's what I've been doing in the garden lately. And family-wise, the big news is Tulip has gone back to school. She has started P2. It's working out really well so far. Last year there were, 2.5 P1s. There's 2 full P1s and a composite P1. And she was in the composite P1, P2. And so now those P1s have moved, the P1C has moved up and the P1A has moved up, and then P1B has been split to fill in the 2 classes. So there's only 2 P1s this year. They're more full than they were last year, but there's only 2 classes. So everyone she was in class with, all the P1s in her class last year, have moved up with her. And then some of her friends from the other P1 class have moved into that class as well, like the neighbor across the street's in the class, and a few other people that she's friends with are in this class now. So I think that has really helped her settle, because it's not getting to know a whole new mix of people. Here's mostly, it feels very comfortable for her knowing all those people. So she has done really well so far. She's also been very proactive in getting up in the morning, taking a shower. This is her thing. We do not insist on a daily shower. My husband and I discussed it at one point, and we really feel that once a month, if you haven't taken a bath or a shower or gone swimming in a month, then you really probably should, whether you need to or not. I should add that Tulip, our 6-year-old, is not a messy kid. She does not like being dirty. If she does come home covered in mud, then we're like, hey, you need your shower today. But she has started taking daily showers and then getting herself dressed. The only thing she needs, and packing her backpack. She's packed her backpack a couple of days. And I'm just like, what have you done with the child last year who basically was like, do it all for me or I won't do it at all. But yeah, she's very proactive about doing everything. And then I just have to bring her food to eat for breakfast. Would you like this or would you like this? This or this, okay? Now you've eaten that, how about this other little thing? She's not a big eater, so she needs to be reminded to eat. But yeah, it's working out. It's working out really well so far. She's even come home and gone in her room. She cleaned up, tidied her room, cleared off her desk, took one of the chairs from the kitchen table because she doesn't actually have a desk chair in her room. She has a mid-rise lofted bed that came with a dresser and a little bookshelf and a desk. Did not come with a chair. And we've looked at buying chairs and it turns out they're very, very expensive. But she has taken one from the kitchen table, and so she goes in her room and she sits down and she does her homework to the best of her ability. So it's working out really, really well. And she had a friend over today and we walked home together, and then they both went in her room and their friend was here for just about 3 hours and they basically never came out. I brought snacks. Well, I brought dinner. I brought an early dinner because I didn't have a chance to go out and buy food today because one of my cats needed, the other cat, not the one who sat here next to me, wound up needing to be rushed to the vet today. We were worried about her. So that's what I did today. She's fine. She should be fine. She's still there, but they have every expectation that she's fine, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So yeah, I did an early dinner, and then I fed them both, and the friend who's just as picky as Tulip as eating was basically like, I don't like any of it. Okay, that's fine. You're not my kid to feed. I just put out food. So when her father came to get her, I said, yeah, no, she hasn't eaten anything since she's been here in the 3 hours. So he was taking them home to their tea. Tulip started Girl Guides this week. Can I just say that the Rainbows have the ugliest uniform I've ever seen. Rainbows, well, it's not Rainbows. In the US, it's Girl Scouts, Brownies, which I guess is the older level here. Anyway, at her age, I was in Brownies, and it's an all-brown uniform with orange, like orange flashes on your socks and stuff like that. It's brown with orange contrasts. And I thought that was ugly. The Rainbow uniform is this off-white, blue-gray that doesn't look like blue-gray so much as it looks like your whites are really dirty. Like you washed them with your darks and they came out gray. And then it's red sleeves and a collar, and then the rainbow logo across the front. And it really is just like the ugliest football stroke soccer uniform shirt that I've ever seen. It is really just not. And I'm sorry if I've offended anyone, if you love it or you have really happy memories that you've never questioned of it, but it is not aesthetically pleasing to me. I showed it to my husband and he was just like, ooh, yeah, no. I'm not going to tell Tulip that, obviously. She doesn't need to hear that I think her uniform is ugly. She gets support, especially about things that she cannot influence, like what her uniform looks like. And Girl Brigade starts next week, so those will be her 2 activities thus far for the year. Last year she did Girl Brigades, which she absolutely loved, and she did swimming, which she loved up until the very moment when she decided she didn't like it anymore and she wasn't going. But these ones are back to back, one night and then the other night. And her homework comes out on Monday. She's got those two Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday her homework gets turned in. So basically she has to come home and do all her homework on Monday. I don't think that 3 nights is enough time to do all your homework. I mean, they don't have a ton of homework as far as that goes, but if you have activities or anything. With the other one, her homework came out on Monday and got turned in on Friday. Although she did still have, like, do your reading over the weekend. And with her activities being Tuesday and Thursday, on Monday she had to do her Monday and her Tuesday homework. And on Wednesday she had to do her Wednesday and her Thursday homework. The bigger homework days were the Tuesday and the Thursday. And then she was all caught up for the week. But we'll see. My husband does homework with her when I take the baby to bed, so that's not really the biggest concern for me. Although one of the moms I was talking, we were at the park, and she said that her kid didn't do the homework at all last year. And it's kind of just like, oh, okay. And no one ever said anything. So, Catherine has mostly been okay with going back to school. Although Catherine's 2.5, and she's very excited to go back to school. And she did spend the first day trying to convince me that she's big enough to start nursery, which she's not. She'll start nursery. Her paid place starts after Easter. But she stood in our chair and she's like, I'm so big, Mama, so big. Like, but not big enough. And she did that first week, she kept coming up to me and she'd be like, where Dina? Which is what she says for Christina. Where Dina? I'm like, oh, well, she's at school. And then she'd be like, go get her? So she still spends most of the day, every so often, she comes up to me and she's like, go now, get Dina. I go, sorry, baby, we have to wait. No, go get Dina. Dina now. Okay, baby. I'm sorry. But we did go to playgroup. We had playgroup one day. We would have gone to playgroup yesterday, which is the one we've never even been to, but there's a playgroup at the same place where the Monday playgroup is, at the same time as the Monday playgroup, except yesterday I was supposed to take Oliver, my ginger heffalumpadump, who's lying next to me, for a follow-up on Wednesday afternoon, but Chris fed him in the morning, and then he disappeared. He did not come back until dinner time that night. So at lunchtime, I had to call and be like, I'm sorry, I don't have a cat. I can't bring him in because he doesn't exist anymore. That's what he told me. He just doesn't exist. So we rescheduled for the following morning, and then when Chris got up to feed them, we locked the cat flap and made sure all the windows were shut and everything. So he just had to stay inside and spent the whole morning mewing piteously. Just very, very unhappy cat and wanted everyone to know about it. And then we took him to the vet. He was very quiet the whole time. And he has a small ulceration in his eye, which has gotten a tiny bit bigger, even with the ointment and the painkillers and everything we've been giving him. So we switched to a different ointment, and we'll go back on Monday to see if it's, at the very least, not growing. Otherwise, she said our options at that point are either to do a surgery to keep the third eyelid. Cats have 3 sets of eyelids, so the top one, the third one, they could just kind of tack it up, and then he wouldn't be able to blink that third eyelid. The other 2 would still close, and then it wouldn't be rubbing where his eye is trying to heal. So hopefully, we don't actually know what caused this either. It was just, his eye wasn't looking good. He must have gotten some kind of scratch or something. She did say the ulceration is a virus, so she can't give antibiotics or anything like that. It's not going to help it clear up. It could prevent other infections, but it won't help the underlying injury. So I'm not inclined to go for surgery, I'm more inclined to go to see the cat ophthalmologist and get a second opinion and see what they say. So that's what I said, is if he does need it more, I would prefer a referral, and then if the surgery is what we need to do, we need to do. But I would not like to have my eyelid, even if I had 3 of them, sewn open. I mean, you can't explain to a cat what's happening. So hopefully he will get better this time. And then that Wednesday night, Thursday, the other cat was throwing up a lot. Both cats threw up. Every so often you come in the morning, you get up in the morning, you start walking around and you're like, oh look, a pile of cat sick. Lovely. And she does have the occasional hairball, whereas they both sometimes just throw up their food, but she'll sometimes throw up hair or bits of grass. And so she, just over a couple of days, she'd thrown up a lot. And I thought it was just kind of the 24 hours that she hadn't been eating. But when he got home tonight, Chris said that it had actually been a couple of days that she hadn't been eating her wet food that we put out for them. Although there had been dry food in at least one of the little cat piles that I found in the morning. So I called first thing this morning when the vet opened and said I need to bring Libby in. And it was a different vet this time, but she felt Libby's tummy, and Libby's really tiny. She was only weighing in at 2.8 kilos today, and normally she's 3.3, which is still, it's a perfectly formed but small cat, and now she is a slightly less perfectly formed, smaller cat. And she said there was a little bit of a lump, so they could keep her for x-rays. So we left her there, and poor Catherine, who was with me, because we're home together. It was supposed to be her gymnastics day today, her first gymnastics class after the summer, and instead we had to go to the vet, and she was kind of bouncing all over the place and using me as a climbing frame. And then when we left without Libby, she was very concerned. She's like, "Why? They took Libby out that door, and we went out that door and back to the waiting room, and all right, if you say this is what we need to do." She's kind of like, okay. And then our taxi came. We don't drive. So our taxi came, and I said, it's time to go now. And she burst into tears and wanted Libby back. So poor kid. She's not okay with leaving our cat at the vet. And yeah. So hopefully tomorrow, I have spoke with the vet, and she's woken up from her anesthetic. They've done the x-ray. There's a mass in her colon. It's not excessively large or anything. And so they've got her on fluids, and they're hoping it'll come out. And if not, they will give her an enema and try to flush it out that way. So it's not fun being a cat right now. Either of our cats, Oliver, gets drops periodically, and Libby's being tortured at the vet. So it's also a very expensive month to be cat owners. But yeah, they're worth it. They're both 9 years old now. They're litter mates. We got them at the same time. They've always been together. And they're just at that cusp of becoming old cats. So we love them very much. I'm just looking at my Oliver, who's next to me, my ginger kitty. So that's us for now. So hopefully next time I talk to you, I'll have good news about both cats, that they're both doing fine and they've recovered nicely. And I mean, even the fact that whatever's in Libby's tummy that's causing her distress is not in her intestines. Because I know, like, if they eat hair tie or string, it can become wrapped around and really be, I mean, that's surgery. So yeah, hopefully next time I talk to you, I will have worked on things that we've worked on in the past. I have worked on the Sky Stone arm warmers. I just don't have enough to really show you on that. I've worked on my Animocry socks, the pink ones that I stabbed myself with. I just don't have enough to really show you those. But yeah, thank you for joining me. And let's was going to say, I should talk to you again before Perth, unless it's 2 weeks again, in which case I will talk to you after Perth. If you're going to Perth, say hi. And yeah. I'm sorry I'm so out of it tonight. I promise I will do better next time. It's been about an hour. Yeah, it's been an hour. I keep thinking I'll manage to make this a shorter podcast, go back to my half-hour ones. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for letting me talk to you about my knitting and my life. And I hope you join me again next time. Thank you. Bye.